this afternoon, so you tell the guys that. But you're on air. Let's talk.
Great. Well, thanks, Naz. First and foremost, I just want to thank you for organizing this. I think it's a very much needed initiative in a place like Durban. Durban also needs a bit of love from the agency side of things. I went there earlier this year on a business trip, and it definitely seemed like the community overall is quite fragmented when it comes to digital adoption and strategies and collaboration especially. So this is a great initiative. I'm going to be covering a lot of the insights and some of the stats from our latest research findings with Worldwide Works. So there's going to be a lot of stats and data that I'll share. The talk definitely won't be as interesting as what Emma gave, but surely some of the same guidelines she spoke about still apply to our data. So companies must by all means not film themselves having sex. That's the first stat I'd like to share with you guys.
That's for sure. Thanks so much for those good words. So we're going to just let you continue. I know it's going to be an awesome presentation. Thanks, Max.
All right, great. It's a bit awkward because I can't actually see anybody, but let's do the best thing we can here. So first and foremost, I just want to take you guys through the basic stats that we've uncovered for the social networks overall. So in South Africa, there's over 12 million people on Facebook already. And interestingly enough, Nokia Asha is the top device used to access Facebook in South Africa. It's not the BlackBerries of the world. It's not even the iPhones or Android devices. So you can see a bit of a mainstream adoption happening on Facebook that brands need to start tapping into. We're having more of a lower LSM market that's accessing this. And I think, interestingly enough, smartphone penetration has surpassed feature phone penetration for the first time on Facebook, meaning that, yes, Nokia Asha is the top device, but not for long. We're going to have a sub 500 Rand smartphone in the next year or so, and most of the market will have access to it. I think Facebook is a very interesting one for brands because, first and foremost, it's probably the company in the world that has the most amount of data on all of the world's consumers and customers. So this also makes Facebook quite a scary monolithic big brother, but it's also rated as the network that returns the most ROI for South African brands. So, it's a bit of a push and pull between how much data a network has and how much value it gives to brands and consumers. The one thing I'd like to discuss about Facebook is that they seem to be decentralizing their own platform. Like they don't actually, in the future, they won't care as much whether you're on Facebook or off of it, for that matter. They'll be able to access you and sell advertising to brands regardless. So obviously, Facebook has acquired Instagram and WhatsApp, mainly for the data and possible future monetization. But in terms of what agencies might tap into in the future, Facebook is launching a new ad network called Atlas, which will compete with Google. So you'll be able to actually use Facebook targeting, so target by age, by gender, by interest, anywhere on the web, on any publisher. So, Google is probably quaking in its boots at this because Facebook has more data than them. So it's going to be a very interesting option for brands. There has been a huge pushback against privacy on Facebook. People are obviously very concerned by how much data Facebook is hoarding. But with Facebook's decentralization approach, it doesn't matter where you are on the web, they're going to be able to track you anyway. So it's a little bit scary, but still the advertising options for brands are almost endless. Just going onto Twitter quick, we've got 6.6 million people on Twitter now in South Africa as of September 2014. And Twitter has seen a lot of maturity as a platform in the last 12 to 24 months. There's a host of advertising options, and Twitter even have their local ad representation now in South Africa. So you don't need a dedicated agency partner to advertise in Twitter. As a brand, you can go direct to the Twitter South Africa advertising branch. And I think what makes Twitter interesting is that for the first time now, there's more South African brands using Twitter than Facebook. I was quite shocked when I saw the stat, but this was from our survey of about 60 South African brands. And I think the reason for this is that Twitter is so much easier to set up, register, and use as a brand. And it's also much easier to grow a Twitter community across the board because of its public nature. Tweet is public to the world immediately, and it's much more easily accessible. So I think a lot of brands will start focusing more heavily on Twitter usage, especially from a CRM perspective. So Twitter is in the future going to replace the call center, and in many ways it has already. A lot of consumers prefer logging a complaint to a query on Twitter than waiting 15 or 20 minutes on hold on the phone. So that's the way things are changing slowly. I think an interesting part of Twitter is that Twitter does allow you to actually directly advertise to certain people. And I don't know of any other social network or ad platform that allows you to do this. So with Twitter's custom audience segments, you as an advertiser can pick and choose specific sets of people via their Twitter usernames and advertise a promoted tweet directly to them. So, this is interesting because you could obviously find people in a specific industry or location and send your branded content direct to them. So I think that's one of Twitter's main interesting options as a way of advertising. Now, just going on to Mixit. Mixit has declined 23% year on year. We're on 4.9 million users now. I think Mixit did have its heyday a couple of years ago, and they haven't quite innovated the way they were supposed to. So we're seeing a slow but steady downward trend, unfortunately. I think the thing about Mixit that's key, I don't know which of you guys actually utilize Mixit for your brands, but there's still 4.9 million engaged users in a very, very specific LSM bracket, which the other social networks do not have. You have a very tight LSM coupling and a very specific set of demographics. And a lot of the bigger brands still utilize Mixit for that specific targeting. I think another thing that's interesting about Mixit is that 7.5 million people downloaded Mixit 7 since December 2013. So this means that people almost want Mixit to succeed. They're interested. Whenever Mixit posts an update, they want to engage. But Mixit still needs to innovate on a level to retain those users, and they haven't managed to do so. Just going on to Instagram, because we always get lots of questions regarding Instagram usage and growth. We've seen a massive spike in Instagram usage, 65% growth since last year in South Africa. We've got now 1.15 million users, which is really quite incredible, since all Instagram is a way of sharing photos and possibly adding filters on top of them. I think one interesting stat from Instagram is that people are not using filters as much as they used to. You had I think Valencia as the #1 filter. Now the #1 filter is no filter, literally, just normal photos. So people are now taking photos and they're just sharing them to the world. And I think the interesting stat here is that in our survey, Instagram and YouTube are the two highest growing networks for brand adoption in the next 12 months in South Africa. So brands are taking this very, very seriously. YouTube and Instagram are going to be huge in the next 12 months, not only with consumers, but brands are planning big campaigns on them. But if you look at the most followed people on Instagram in the country, it's still your niche photographers, fashion models, that sort of thing. So it's very specific. But as more and more people come onto the platform, you'll see a broader diversity of people. But still, we're seeing a lot of brands do very, very interesting stuff on Instagram. Visual content is definitely the way forward when it comes to brand advertising and social media. Without a doubt, videos and photos always perform the best across every social network, and brands are tapping into that now. Going on to Pinterest, there's not much to say. I'm sure everybody's used Pinterest in this room, but it's fallen in popularity slightly. It's down to 840,000 monthly users. It was absolutely huge last year, but I think Instagram has taken a large part of that audience, simply because it's easier to use and it's mobile first. Instagram was built with mobile usage in mind, where a lot of the social media adoption is coming from. So Pinterest hasn't quite managed to grow locally as well as internationally. I think they've been stuck with around 70 million users globally for the last year or so. So we'll see what Pinterest has in mind for the next 12 months, but it's not big. Going on to YouTube, this is an exciting platform, which I think every single consumer-facing brand in the country needs to at least have some eye on. First and foremost, 7.7 million users in South Africa are using YouTube every month. It's a huge, huge amount of people, and I think we've seen also a lot more people actively creating content on YouTube. Normal video bloggers, teenagers giving reviews on makeup, people curating content from different sources. We've seen a lot of people actually engaging on YouTube locally. The content isn't quite there yet. It's not up to scratch the international content. So a lot of our most viewed content in South Africa comes from the US and the UK. And that's not an African trend, by the way. That's more South Africa. In Nigeria, for example, you have the most viewed videos being actual Nigerian local content, specifically Nollywood type stuff. So I think South Africa is going to get there, but it's a huge opportunity right now for brands to take advantage of. With that said, the top 10 accounts in South Africa on YouTube have over 200 million views collectively, which is a huge amount of traction, and also a huge amount of ad revenue. A lot of people are actually starting to use YouTube as a source for ad revenue, especially the video bloggers. With that said, we recently crowned Kruger Sightings the top truly local YouTube channel by a number of views. They've got almost 100 million views right now, and this one channel was started by this 18-year-old kid named Nadav Osendrever. He gave no marketing budget to it. All he had was a vision to share sightings from the Kruger National Park with the world. And all of a sudden, it's gotten 100 million views in a couple of years. And his father has even quit his job to help the son grow the business and the channel. That's how lucrative it is. So it's been incredibly successful. And it's surpassed all these brands that have already pushed millions of rands in funding into YouTube. So I think the point there is that brands need to use YouTube in the way it was meant to be used for. They can't just create a commercial made for TV and upload it and hope for the best. You need to start looking, for example, at which people on YouTube or which content creators on YouTube are getting a decent audience, and how brands can potentially partner with those people and utilize them in branded campaigns. So influencer marketing on YouTube is going to be quite big, I believe, in the next 12 to 24 months.
Okay, Mike, I'm just going to cut in there very, very quickly. You've gone through the stats. I know you're going to talk about social media, particularly with entrepreneurs and business, and then I'd like to give the audience a chance just to ask a few questions. We're running up very close towards 8 o'clock, and I know we cut into your time. So is that going to be okay on your side?
Well, how many minutes do I have? Because I've got a bit more to add. It's a tight one.
What is the time properly? Because my watch is not so great.
7:30.
Yes, so we've got half an hour.
We've got half an hour. Okay, well, great. If the audience doesn't mind, then I'm glad to keep sharing until people start falling asleep. So, all right, let's.
We're doing our next call at 8 o'clock, so please let's do it.
Okay, fantastic. So just moving on to the last little network, Google+. We haven't seen much traction there, but also Google+ is now so integrated with Gmail and YouTube, it's extremely hard to measure how many people are actually on Google+. Even if we go out there and run surveys to see how many people are using Google+, a lot of people are confused as to whether they're actually on Google+ or not. If you get a Google Plus update in your Gmail, are you a Google Plus user? So we don't have those stats, unfortunately. But if we look at the engagement that brands are getting on Google Plus, and for example, the most followed people on Google Plus in South Africa, it's still a very small community with minimal engagement. The guys at the top are specifically in photography or technology or media. So you don't have this wide diversity. So we haven't seen much growth from Google Plus, unfortunately. So I just want to share with you guys a couple of stats from our survey with 60 brands on how they see social media in the next 12 months. So first and foremost, we asked them, is social media a tool that can help your business grow? And 82% of them said yes. And then we asked, are you guys getting as much value from social media as you can? And only 12% said yes. So we've got a huge way to go where brands see value, but they don't know how to unlock it. 51% of brands are increasing social media budget in the next 12 months, but they still don't know how quite to allocate it and where the ROI is going to come from. We've seen a bit of a saturation point for social media for large SA brands. We've got over 90% saturation. They're using social, but still, there's a difficulty in analyzing, in measuring all of this, and understanding where the value is. So this is where I'd like to maybe discuss about the concept of the social business. And I think this is where brands can start getting social media right. So social media right now, as it stands, is more of a marketing and a PR function for most companies. But what we're seeing is that a company needs to be co-created by its customers. Customers are voicing their opinions on social media, and what's happened is the brand itself isn't owned by the agency anymore, it's owned by the consumers. The consumers are creating the brand through their conversations and through their word of mouth. So, brands need to find ways in which to collaborate with their customers to actually co-create not only the branding, but the business itself. Improve products, improve service offerings through the use of social media to become truly social businesses. And more than that, I think implementing social media within a company to enable every single person in that company to have a voice, to collaborate, to contribute new ideas, that's, I think, where brands can really unlock the true value of social media, as opposed to just, pushing marketing material out there. Yeah, I think additionally, the digital landscape has become extremely fractured. So, now we've got Instagram. Who knows what will happen in the next 12 months? And what's happening is that brands almost have an ego-driven approach to social media where they need to be on everything all the time. And one of the reasons they're not seeing ROI is they are on everything all the time, and they don't actually know how to manage these channels or create content for every channel. They're just syndicating content everywhere. So I think there's a need for brands to focus on the one or two or maybe three social networks that really make sense for them. And for agencies especially to understand that there is a fracturing of digital, and they need to start collaborating together. So I don't even think the big agencies in South Africa are getting it right. They're trying to hire as many people as possible so that you have the expert for every single thing: the Instagram expert, the Twitter promoted tweets expert, the Facebook expert, the SEO expert in-house. But even that is creating very bloated business models that aren't actually optimized. So I think what's going to happen is brands are going to start going to specialists for very individual roles. And agencies need to start seeing themselves as specialists and not generalists, so they can carve out their own niche instead of being like a one-size-fits-all behemoth. So this is a subjective thing. Not everybody's going to agree with me, but I think that's where things are going. So I just want to end off with two huge trends that I see in social media in the next 12 months, and that brands have actually agreed are part of their key strategies. Number one is content marketing, and I know Arthur's going to speak a lot more about that. He's doing some great stuff with Juice Content, but I think the key thing here is that content marketing is not advertorials. A lot of people are mistaking the two. Content marketing is something entirely different. We're talking about brands that are actually finding people online in social media and collaborating with them to create interesting pieces of content. So like in the past, the brand used to maybe get a celebrity endorsement. Now what brands are doing is they're actually finding influencers on social media across Twitter, YouTube, bloggers, for example, and they're finding ways in which to create engaging, entertaining, funny content where the brand isn't at the core, but the brand appears somewhere in the content piece itself. It's not about the brand. So what happens is that the consumers love content. They always have loved great content, but brands aren't necessarily the best vehicles for creating good quality content. Consumers, by and large, connect with people. And these people are individual influencers. So a lot of brands are looking to market towards influencers, to establish relationships with them, and to create this content. So 73% of brands are actually looking at content marketing in the next 12 months, and 43% are engaging with social media influencers in the next 12 months. It's two big trends that you absolutely need to take a look at. And I think one last thing that I'd like to touch on is the concept of retargeting, especially for the agency guys in the room. It's one of the new ways in which companies are getting a lot more conversions on their websites through social media, especially. So what's happening is that you can actually plant a cookie on your website. So when a person visits your website and leaves without doing anything, you could retarget them on social media, send them a promoted tweet, for example, to get them back to your website. And that promoted tweet will actually know that the visitor has been on your website in the first place. Same thing with a promoted Facebook post. So we're going to see a lot more tighter integration between the purchase process of the customer online and social media. So brands and agencies really need to keep tabs on that, because it allows for greater ROI and really easy ways to measure all of that success. So that's all I have for today. I think maybe we can go on to questions. I'd love to answer whatever people have.
Okay, sounds great. I think that was a really great roundup of all the stats, particularly the ones that you're selling in your amazing reports. Please tell us what the report costs again, Mike.
Right, so the report is geared towards corporates. It's an annual survey of 60 brands. It's an in-depth analysis of every single social network in the country and where things are going. It's obviously a collaboration between myself and Arthur Goldstuck of Worldwide Works. It's being sold for 15,000 a piece. It's available from Worldwide Works right now. Typically, it's the corporate market that buys into it, but we have seen a lot of agency interest as well, because agencies need to understand where things are going in order to be able to plan and strategize effectively.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that. We're going to have about, I would say, 3 questions, because I'm very mindful of our next call that we have on. But who's first? Anybody? We've got Mike all the way here. Please honor him with a question at least. Ask him what his favorite food is. Anything?
I must have just completed everything. I covered everything completely, so it's all good.
I think so. You've done a pretty good job. That's why there aren't any questions. We'll take a last round calling for questions. Don't be shy. Mike is very, very cool. No? Okay, let Emma.
I'm not that scary. Hey, I'm not that scary, I promise. Any questions? Yes, Emma.
Hi, Mike. I just want to say hi.
How's it going? Long time no see.
No, I do want to ask you about Mixit and where you see that going. Do you think it'll ever recover, or do you think that's it?
Right, so Mixit has tried a lot of things in the last couple of years. It's not like they're not trying. They were bought out by World of Avatar. They've got Michael Jordan on board as chairman. But I think the problem with Mixit is that it's got too much old technology backing it up. I mean, I was actually a co-developer on Mixit's platform like 6 years ago. And even then, the code, a lot of the code was quite outdated and old. From the very first version of Mixit, basically. So even today, they've built structures and structures and structures on top of this old code base. So it doesn't have a very fresh and intuitive interface, unfortunately. I know they are going towards that, but it needs a massive revamp if they're to get any kind of traction. And as well, I think, besides the technology problem Mixit has, they've got a branding problem. The thing is, they're no longer cool. It's no longer the go-to platform to converse on, even for the younger generation. So the branding problem is possibly worse than the technology problem, because once a brand is uncool, it's very difficult to make it cool again, even with massive marketing spend. So I think Mixit has a huge challenge on their hands. I personally think it's going to be a while before we see a turnaround, and they'll really have to revamp their brand. But it's definitely going to be a challenge, yeah.
Next question.
Hi, Mike. I'm not sure if you can see me. I'm quite short.
Yeah.
Just comes to the front. Hi, I'm Hitesh. I run my own digital agency called Creative Culture. Look, I'm not sure if this is the correct forum to ask this, but are any South African brands, I mean, you spoke about content marketing, are any South African brands doing any exciting things on, in the content space? I mean, I think about Red Bull in the States, but I just wanted the South African context about good content marketers, in our country. Maybe you can help me find some insight.
Sure. Well, we have seen some interesting content campaigns. I think, for example, Woolworths did that tribute to Mandela, right? And that was one of the most viewed videos of the year, actually, in September, October last year. So that obviously was around Mandela and not about promoting Woolworths' brand, but still they got millions of views on that one video because people related and resonated with that. I think we're still seeing a lot of commercial stuff coming through. A lot of brands are. I'm just trying to open up my stats on the most viewed brand videos, if you guys will bear with me. But what we're seeing is that, for example, a brand will take a small marketing budget, say 100 or 150,000 rand, a large brand, of course, but small for them, and they will actually finance a content creator on YouTube. So let's say Casper Lee, right? And they'll kind of tell Casper Lee to create something to promote the brand, but in a funny way. And Casper Lee will have complete editorial power over what he does. And we've seen some success. For example, Anton Taylor, a local YouTuber, he created a video promoting WeChat's launch. So WeChat gave him a bit of money, and he created a video about how much he hates Valentine's Day. Super funny. You guys have to watch it. Just YouTube that. And then he mentions WeChat as an aside, but it's integrated in a very clever way in the video. So that video alone got 400,000 organic views. It wasn't promoted. And that's the kind of stuff that I think there is quality being made, but definitely not enough, which means it's a huge potential driver for brand growth. The market is open right now for good quality content.
Okay, brilliant. I think we have one more question, and then we're rounding up.
Okay, sure.
We've got literally about 2 minutes. I'm a friend of Emma's. Just generally, very, very simply, like 2-minute answer. What about Waze? So I believe Waze is spread around the world like wildfire, and they've got a very user-friendly platform. Just a general summary on that.
From a social media perspective or a brand perspective, or what kind of comment are you looking for? Because I myself haven't used Waze that much, so I don't know if I can comment freely on it. But I mean, it's a great competitor to Google Maps. Personally, every time I've used Waze, it's pretty much beaten Google Maps' prediction, hands down, especially through traffic. So I think they've done something really great with regards to crowdsourcing. They crowdsource, for example, traffic accidents and roadblocks and whatnot in a way that Google Maps can't do because they don't have that crowdsourcing enabled. So the thing is, right now, from a social media perspective, I don't think there's any plans for ways to commercialize that in terms of advertising, but I can't comment on that.
Cool. Mike, I think we're done for now. I just wanted to thank you so much for your time. I know you came aboard. You've given us immense support with this event. You've been on board since day one, and we can't thank you enough. Please give our guest a round of applause.
Cool. Thanks, and I'm glad this went off without a hitch, actually. Technology always has some issues, but this was good.
This is great,
Thank
and
you,
for sure, next time we will see you here, that's for sure. Thanks,
Okay.
Mike.
It's a plan. Thank you. You too. Bye.